Today on Fear and Greed, the federal government announces another $3 billion for the NBN, saying it will enable most homes and businesses to fully access high-speed internet. The share price of the big banks has sold down on the back of interest rate fears, and sales at Myer disappoint, sending its share price down 15%. Plus, a bidding war breaks out for wealth manager Insignia Financial, and humanity's largest gathering begins in India, where 400 million people are expected to congregate for a Hindu festival. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It is Tuesday, the 14th of January 2025. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Morning, Michael. Something for everyone in today's show.
That's quite a mix, isn't it? The main story this morning, Sean, is kind of where business and politics and everything kind of collides at the moment. Daily life actually depends on this one. The federal government will spend another $3 billion on the NBN rollout. This is money that it claims will extend fibre optic connections to the doors of most homes and businesses, assuming that those are the ones who have missed out so far.
The National Broadband Network is probably my favourite all-time infrastructure project in Australia because...
Only you would have a list of your favourite infrastructure projects, though. Nothing beats a good bridge for me, but go on.
Sydney Metro's number 2. Now, the NBN, what it is actually the heart of modern communications. We have 5G, but it's not quite there yet. So fibre optic is really important. The NBN started in 2010. The initial budget was $29.5 billion. It's probably cost about twice that much, probably about $60 billion in the interceding 15 years or so. The government's paid about $35 billion of that. The NBN itself has paid for a big chunk of it as well. So spend about $60 billion, let's say. The value of it, if sold, well, the Productivity Commission a couple of years ago said it was $19.5 billion in the government's accounts. It's $29.5 billion. Yesterday, the government said it will spend another $3 billion. Lots of numbers here. The NBN will also throw in $800 million. But what it means is that 622,000 new addresses will get fibre to their door. Now, that's about $6,000 per address. Sounds like a lot, but a lot of these are rural and more remote areas, and obviously it costs a lot more to get fibre to those addresses. It's going to be completed in 2030. Originally, this was actually, you may or may not remember, Michael, you might be too young, but I remember reporting on it. The whole idea was that you're going to get fibre to the home originally. And then the coalition came in under Malcolm Turnbull and they made it fibre to the node, which meant fibre optic cable ran to somewhere in your street and then copper wire ran to your home. Now we're trying to replace that copper wire with fibre optic cable. Oh, I know you're rolling your eyes. You don't care, but this is really important. It's about high-speed internet.
I'm not rolling my eyes because you say I may not remember this. I was working in talkback radio at the time, and this was an issue that every single person in the country had an opinion on because, number one, it was a huge public spending measure. But also, a lot of people, it seemed, couldn't understand the long-term benefits to productivity. Really there was a big focus on the transition from 3G to 4G at the time. And really this was just, it was a whole nother step up. And it came with the price tag as well. And so, yes, I completely understand and I completely agree with you that this is significant.
It is. Now, of course, you need fibre optic cable from your doorstep to your laptop to make it complete, but let's not get down that path. Anyway, another $3 billion. Most homes and businesses will have fibre optic cable to the doorstep by 2030. The government said clearly this will become an election issue. The two sides don't necessarily agree, though I'm not quite sure what the coalition's view on it is. Certainly some of the crossbenchers aren't keen on the extra spending.
Can I ask you a question that you may not be able to answer?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So you know how you said the Productivity Commission a few years ago determined the value to be at about $19.5 billion, and the government obviously has it higher than that now. That is the value of it just solely as an asset, right? And the potential for it to generate a return on that asset for the future. It doesn't take into account the actual impact that it has on every single business within the country, does it?
It does indirectly, though, because the value of that is because it is connected to every single business in the country. And what they're talking about is if you're going to sell it, and both sides of politics at different times have floated the idea of selling the NBN, probably can't do it, but there might be an election promise in that. then someone would be prepared to pay about $20 billion. I kind of get what your question is, but that $20 billion, it's not just the cables or the fibre optic cable to the house. It's the fact that people use it. So it sort of brings in what you're talking about.
Yeah, because I think it goes to that point of kind of infrastructure projects. The best infrastructure projects always have a value greater than the actual value of the physical item.
Yes.
That they have a massive, massive impact on daily life, on business, and on the economy more broadly then as well. So anyway, we've pretty much turned this whole show into an NBN show, haven't we?
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. We're not going to go away too far from politics, though, Sean, because Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Opposition Leader Peter Dutton they're already at it, right? Yeah. The year's only just started. Yesterday, they were trading insults as the really an unofficial, still at this stage, election campaign ramps up.
So Peter Dutton spoke about the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese being the weakest Prime Minister since Federation. That was on Sunday. Yesterday, Mr Albanese hit back. He said Australia needs leadership with a heart. Let me quote. Peter Dutton represents a cold-hearted, mean-spirited, sometimes just plain nasty response. And that's not going to help people. He was talking on ABC radio, Michael. It's going to be a long 5 months.
It could well be a very, very long 5 months. But, I like a bit of spirit in the debate, don't you?
That's true. Yeah, that's very true.
So on a quick mention of the interview that we have coming up after the show. We've still got more to cover before then, but stick around because there is an interview coming up with Gaurav Sodhi from Intelligent Investor.
Yes. We're talking about Lovisa. We don't often jump into one stock, but Lovisa at times has been the most loved retailer out there. It's a fashion jewellery chain. It's also had a CEO who was incredibly well remunerated. We asked Gaurav what he thinks of it. He goes through why people like the stock so much. He also goes through some of the reasons why it may not do so well. So a really interesting deep dive into one particular stock which everyone seems to have a view on one way or another.
Yeah, it is a great chat. It is coming up after the show. Stick around, though. We've got plenty more to cover. We're talking the big sell-off in bank shares yesterday, a bad day for Myer as well, Sean, and the story that we mentioned at the top of the show, this massive, massive gathering in India. It's quite a remarkable story. Stick around. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, there was a major sell-off in bank stocks yesterday with the share price of all of the big four, Commonwealth Bank, National Australia Bank, Westpac and ANZ, dropping 2% or more.
You can throw a few other financials onto that list. Macquarie Group, QBE, Suncorp, a shocking day for financials. Why? The answer is fears of reinflation in the US and a slowdown in interest rate cuts in the US. Also, here in Australia, US stocks or US financials being sold off, that is hitting the local stocks. If rates start falling, and if they continue to fall, the idea is that banks can hold on to some of that margin. So they get an interest rate cut. Might take 2 months before the bank actually says, oh, yeah, you can pay a lower rate. That money that you're there making, they hold on to. It's supposed to be good for the banks. Problem is, if rates don't fall, that might not happen. Remember last year, the bank stocks, led by Westpac and Commonwealth Bank, did incredibly well. The whole idea of being priced to perfection. Well, the problem is, if things aren't going to work the way the banks want them to work, then maybe they're overpriced. That's the theory anyway, and the sell-off yesterday.
Yeah, big day for bank stocks. Energy stocks, though, seem to be doing okay.
Yes, we haven't said that for very much in the last year or so. Oil prices are on the rise. At the back of that, I don't think you have anything at the back of an oil price. The reason for that, Michael, cold northern winter, Europe and the US. Mm-hmm. There's also more sanctions against Russia being implemented, and Donald Trump has talked about slowing the flow of oil from Iran. Therefore, lower supply, still high demand, particularly with that cold northern winter, prices go up. As a result, Woodside and Santos were among the best performers yesterday. Overall, the local share market closed down more than 1% yesterday to 8,191 points. The biggest falls outside the financials were really the tech stocks. Xero, Pro Medicus, WiseTech Global, they all fell. So too did Wesfarmers and CSL, bucking the trend with the gold stocks. The precious metal is rising in price. It has done for the last 3 weeks or so. Also worth a mention, Star Entertainment. Yesterday morning, we talked about the fact that its share price absolutely got hammered on Monday. A bit of a reversal yesterday. There's a Chinese buyer in the market. That buyer has purchased 5.5% of Star. At one point yesterday was up nearly 18%, ended up closing up about 15%. Quite the gamble, I suspect, the Chinese buyer buying Star.
Yeah, sounds like it. Now, a tough day on the floor yesterday, Sean, for Myer. Its share price tumbled more than 15% after it said the Christmas selling season was tough, which is not what you want to hear from a retailer, with sales slightly lower than last year, than the previous year.
It's a really big fortnight for Myer. There's a shareholder vote next week on the idea that they're going to buy Premier Investments women's wear and casual brands. They've got to get that through shareholders. Yesterday, Olivia Wirth, the CEO, came out and said Myer's trading conditions were tough. There's been store closures. There's been higher costs. That's hit both sales and profit. In fact, in the 22 weeks to the 28th of December, which is that run into Christmas, sales were actually lower while gross profit fell as well. Basically, Black Friday sales are good, but things have been very, very tough ever since. Also, Premier Investments came out. It announced poor sales at some of its brands. Its share price was down 15%. Not good for either retailer. I'm not sure how that plays out among shareholders when they vote next week, though.
Sean, this next one, I don't know whether this kind of bodes well for a big year of deal making, but the year's first bidding war for a company has broken out. We're only 2 weeks into 2025. Private equity group Bain Capital has upped its offer for ASX-listed wealth company Insignia Financial to $2.9 billion.
It went from $4 a share to $4.30 a share. There's another bidder in this, CC Capital, which is a US-based PE group as well. They've bid $4.30 a share. Now, Insignia's share price is at $4.23. So I dare say a deal will get done one way or another. Insignia is an interesting company full of financial planners, wealth managers. It's done really well the last 6 months, even before the bid. 4,000 employees. It's a huge company, $320 billion funds under management. But let's face it, what we're really interested in is its history. So it used to be known as IOOF, the International Organisation of Oddfellows. Is that not a cool? Yes. Yeah, we don't talk about Oddfellows enough on this show.
I think this could be a first.
Yeah, absolutely. It was 200 years old in Australia, set up to look after families.
Yeah.
And it sort of has grown into IOOF and now into Insignia.
Oh, a great bit of backstory. It's a history lesson.
Actually, I got that wrong because I've just Googled it while I've been talking because it didn't sound right to me. It's the Independent Order of Oddfellows.
Okay.
That's what it originated as.
That is
what is an odd fellow? I mean, I've known a few.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working with one. The that's the kind of thing that would come up at a pub trivia, like an obscure pub trivia. That's a jackpot round question.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
Like, what does IOOF stand for? And you might have just won someone like $500 or something, Sean.
Maybe, or a free drink or something like that. Independent Order of Oddfellows.
Okay, remember that one. Turning to international news now, the fires in California, Sean, could be the costliest in US history, according to the state's governor.
With strong winds picking up, the death toll is now at 24. Governor Gavin Newsom said the death toll is likely to rise. The fires could be the highest in terms of costs to the economy. Analysts at AccuWeather has forecast economic loss from the fires of about $150 billion US dollars so far. Now, Hurricane Helene holds the record last year, $250 billion US dollars. One of the issues is that Los Angeles has experienced its second driest start to the rainy season in a century. They also suspect that the Palisades fire, the big one, started about New Year's Eve at a spot where they thought they had doused a fire about 6 days earlier. It's become very political. Donald Trump has come and very much blamed the Californian governor, Gavin Newsom, for it. In fact, he calls him new scum. So Gavin Newsom, Donald Trump calls new scum. Newsom has come out and basically said disinformation isn't helping anyone. Donald Trump has been invited to tour the site, though at this point, that's not clear that he will.
Finally, Sean, I mentioned this story at the top of the show. This is really quite remarkable. Just the scale of this. Millions have arrived to attend the Hindu festival of Kumbh Mela, which is described as humanity's biggest gathering in northern India.
Yes, the event, held about every 12 years, started yesterday, and over the next 6 weeks, the devout will bathe at Sangam, the confluence of India's most sacred Ganges River, the Yamuna River, and the mythical Saraswati. According to a BBC report, Hindus believe that taking a dip in the sacred river will cleanse them of sins, purify their soul, and liberate them from the cycle of birth and death, as the ultimate goal of Hinduism is salvation. About 400 million pilgrims are expected to attend the 45-day spectacle. It is so large it can be seen from space. 5 to 8 million worshippers were expected to bathe yesterday. Today could be up to 20 million. The big spectacle today, ash-smeared naked Hindu holy men with matted dreadlocks, known as Naga sadhus, taking a dip at dawn.
What? That is just incredible. That it's so big that you can see it from space.
Yeah, it is phenomenal.
You were right, Sean. There was something for everybody in that one today. Up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview. As we mentioned before, Intelligent Investors Gaurav Sodhi speaking about Lovisa. Great interview. Coming up straight after this in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thanks very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Tuesday, the 14th of January 2025. Make sure you're following the podcast and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.